You're listening to What's Up Digital Lending, the podcast that explores the exciting world of digital lending. We make a deep dive into the most important issues and talk to the leading minds of the ecosystem.
Hello everybody, my guests today in this episode number 15 are Eduard Singer, Managing Partner at Neusinger, Frank Fischer, Partner at Annerton, and Jan Pomplun, CEO at BerlinerLuft. My name is Constantin Fabricius and I'm the host of this podcast. Today we're talking about NIS2, DORA and the Cyber Resilience Act, the CRA, looming on the regulatory horizon. And why? Well, the European IT security landscape is on the verge of a major change. Interestingly, however, this still does not seem to be known to all stakeholders. With the introduction of NIS2, DORA and the upcoming CRA, companies will be forced to rethink their IT security strategies more than ever before. The aim is to get prepared for cyber attacks and to be able to react appropriately should they occur. But how do you best meet these challenges in practice? What is a smart risk management strategy, and how do people responsible for IT service management ensure business continuity? These are all questions that are of course also highly relevant for fintech lenders because the resilience of their digital business models is at stake. In addition, there are overlaps between various legal acts, from NIS2 with DORA, from CRA with a Product Liability Directive. We will be discussing this with top-class experts. But the very special guest at today's show is Jan Pomplun. His company has experienced a cyber attack and survived. He will be reporting on this in a moment. This much I can say. Jan's story reminded me of the fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm of the boy who went forth to learn what fear was. Brace yourself, folks. Before we start, though, listen carefully to the following. The content of this podcast is expressly not to be considered investment advice, but is intended solely for your information. We do not assume any liability and will not share any profits. Okay, let's start talking. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for the invitation. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for having us here.
Yeah, thank you guys. Please introduce yourselves. Who are you and which company are you speaking for? Eduard, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure, Constantin. My name is Eduard. I was a very technical guy, but in the last 20 years, making more consultancy and also technical things, but also management of the companies. So came from cybersecurity and software development. Now I'm managing an AI company, Neusinger AI. We are consulting and implementing artificial intelligence. But also I'm working a lot in the area of cybersecurity, and especially in ISO 27001, ISMS, DORA and NIS2. Worked for KPMG, and now I'm very engaged in the German AI Association, where I'm head of Working Group Finance and Insurance and Task Force Mittelstand. So that about me.
Thank you. Frank.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Frank Fischer, I'm a lawyer and partner with the law firm of Annerton, based in Munich. I've been working as a lawyer for the last 20 years and for the last 15 years focusing on financial services. Have a Big Four law firm background as well. And as Annerton is focused on financial services and regulatory law, it's a very good fit in covering all these regulatory topics. And I've been working on DORA and outsourcing and IT-related topics for the last couple of years. And we can see things really picking up speed from the regulatory side. And there's also a great need to really talk also within the companies that are being regulated. So very happy to join the call.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Jan.
Yeah, so also thank you for having me here. And my name is Jan Pomplun. I also have a technical background. I studied physics and math. but spent the last 20 years more or less in and with the software industry. So after studying, I was in a software startup from the university. And 8 years ago, I joined my employee, the BerlinerLuft, which I'm now the CEO of. The BerlinerLuft is a family-owned business, quite large, with 1,000 employees worldwide. We have our headquarters in Berlin. So we are operating mainly in Europe, Germany, Poland, Austria, Croatia, but also Mexico and Brazil. And we are like a classical industry. We are producing air handling equipment. So, for example, air handling units, industrial fans, air ducts, or other ventilation equipment. So in the company, I have really, I would say, a strategical, technical part. So I'm basically driving the digitalization of the company, product configurators, things like that. So get away from paper, Excel, things like that to more seamless digital processes.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you all, guys. It's really great to have you in the show today, Jan, as you are able to testify on a cybersecurity incident. And this is something many in the fintech lending ecosystem know from theory, but they have never ever suffered from an incident. And please tell us what you suffered from and what exactly it was the day when when you realized that there is an attack in space. So please elaborate a little bit on this.
Yeah, so it's very funny. So in this weekend, it will be the first anniversary when the attack basically happened. So it was more or less exactly 1 year ago, Saturday afternoon. I was sitting with my family in a restaurant and was receiving a phone call from our CFO to get in touch with IT in Poland. So in Poland, we have a sister company from a German company. And he said something, they discovered some encrypted files or something like this, and some servers would not be working. So I called the colleague, and really I remember it like yesterday, like he said, it looks really bad. So, and basically no server was working in the Polish company. And then I remember that in the morning, I wanted to send an email from my iPhone, but it didn't go out. And I already thought in the morning, or maybe I have no internet access or something is not configured right. But then I already got the fear that if Poland is attacked, maybe also we in Germany have an attack. So I called our German IT guys, and they confirmed that basically all our servers also in Germany were down. So they couldn't reach them. They were encrypted. So it was, how you say it, super GAU. It really is a very severe incident.
Okay. Oh my goodness. And how exactly did this exert influence on your organization? So what exactly did it mean? You have just mentioned that your servers were down, but I assume that this was not all you had to tackle with.
Yeah, I mean, we hosted our IT ourselves. So we had server rooms, and most things were self-hosted. So our email servers, all the file servers with all the data from all the employees, all programs that we're using, like the ERP system, were provided from a central location via Citrix. The construction programs for our CAD engineers, configurators for making offers, and basically nothing worked. No program, no server, nothing. So everything was encrypted. And what makes it so difficult for us, so in the ventilation business, a lot of products are built to order. So they have so much variance and dimensions and materials and technical specifications. So it makes no sense to produce anything on stock and put it out of stock when somebody buys it. But we really have a complex process from a customer wants something. We make an offer for exactly this product. We make a CAD construction. We produce it. So it's really a lot of IT involved. And then on a Saturday, you realize on Monday, roughly 600 people are coming to work and they cannot work. And you sum up, it is like several €100,000 per day. Only the costs for the loan you have to pay if you break it down to a day. And you say, okay, from Monday on, we lose around 100,000 or 200,000 euros per day. So that was really a fearful moment. So I just wanted to, I don't know, I had the imagination. I just want to be a regular employee, come on Monday to work. My laptop is not working and go home. But, it's the family business of my wife's family. My father-in-law built it up the past 35 years. I'm responsible for the IT. And you start to realize you have to manage this now. Otherwise, the company could easily go down south.
Okay, and what kind of resources did you involve internally or even externally to cope with this challenge?
Yeah.
So how did you master it?
Yeah. So one good thing, we had a cyber insurance. So this has a few benefits. So one is, I can come to it later. We got some compensation for it from it, not all of it, but really the good thing was I had an emergency number which I could call. And you have some people on the other side of the line, and for them it's daily business, and it's really good to have somebody to talk to I don't know, to somehow get to manage or realize what the situation is. And then basically this is what I did 1 hour or so after the first phone call. And then basically we managed for Sunday to get all the responsible managers on all sites in Germany and Poland come together and manage things. And of course, there's a lot to manage. It always depends how severe the attack is, if it's just locally one system or one branch. But for us, it was really everything. And if everything is attacked, you have to disconnect everything from the internet because it can influence your customers, your business partners. You don't want to spread anything. You are completely disconnected. Everybody has his laptop at home, but cannot go into the internet. And so you have several hundred people sitting with their laptops and they cannot work. And so this is basically, you have to start to manage it.
And how long did it take until you were able to work again? At let's say at 100%. So I have absolutely no picture of it.
Yeah. So I would say today, after 1 year, we are at 95%. So it's really a process. And basically, when you get attacked, I would say you have three options. So one is you pay the ransom. You get in contact with the attacker. So I got 2 very nice emails. They said, "Oh, don't see this as an attack. It's really a test of your security infrastructure. Work together with us. We show you your security holes, how we got in, and try to improve your systems. And don't pay so much money in building up your systems again." So it was a quite nice email, a good salesperson. So this is one option, of course. The second is, of course, everybody has some kind of backups. So then you can say, okay, I have my backups. I bring up my backups again. So also we had very good backups. So basically on the 1 day after the attack, we could restore everything like 5 minutes before the attack. So we have everything virtualized, virtual servers. The whole infrastructure could, by a push of a button, was restored like on Friday. But a few months in advance of the attack, I was attending a workshop where they basically made like a theater of such a cyber incident, which was very, very useful to get some kind of this feeling. And they said these attackers are typically weeks to months to maybe, I don't know, years, but maybe a year already in your system. And they get some entry point, they infiltrate in the next stage, the next stage, the next stage. And basically, in the end, they had all of our passwords. They were so deep in our system. So for the backup, they increased the backup rate. So it would basically run full our backup memory, things like that. So they had, I don't know, 40-digit passwords of everything. I don't know how they got it, but they got it. And when you start to recover your system from your backups, you have to ask your question, so what do I take? Do I take Friday? Do I take Friday last week? Do I take 1 month back, 5 months back? If I take 5 months back, what is the data that happened for the past 5 months? How do I get them into my system? So it's really not so useful. And what I learned in this workshop, you spend a lot of time, or you're wasting a lot of time restoring from these backups the easy way. But in the end, you just lose time and it's not working. So we really, from the beginning, we said we build everything up from scratch again. We start with empty servers, install Windows, install this and that. And then basically, the good thing is when you have backups, you can go with a memory stick to the backup, get the data down. It goes through what they call a washing street. So you have 3 different virus scanners. You scan all the data you get out of your backup systems, and then you can consider them as clean. And then you basically put them into the new systems again. So for example, the ERP system was running after 9 days. So of course, we had help from our ERP provider, ProAlpha. They installed a new server. We went to our backup systems with a hard drive, plugged it in, got the data out, plugged it to the first virus scanner, to the second, to the third, put the database back into the new system, and the system was running. And now you can imagine you have hundreds of systems. Everybody wants this data, this and that. And you buy 200 memory sticks and 50 hard drives. You get the data out, then you put a red sticker on it, you clean it, then you put a green sticker, then you use it again. So it's a lot of also a quite physical task, I would say, to recover from such an incident.
How much have you guys paid to date for restoring this architecture?
The pure IT costs was around, I would say, 300,000 to 400,000 euros. But the biggest part, I mean, we are producing company, we are producing goods. So the biggest part is really if you cannot produce. So for us as a producing company, so priority 1, 2, and 3 is get back to production. So this is what really costs a lot. And this is also when I say how to prioritize, what to do, it's really how to generate cash, how to put people to work, and how to put many people to work easily. To start with system like the low-hanging fruits. So we could start with some production systems which you can just install on a laptop. So we just formatted the laptops, installed a program, and they could work locally with a production machine. Of course, they had to run with a memory stick to the machine, but they could start production. So really to have like a priority list, what to restore first for your main core business, to generate cash, to pay your loan for the next month. So this is what I would say for a producing company, that's the top priority. So if you miss some offers, okay, but having 300 people in the factory and not doing anything, that's what really expensive.
Okay, yeah, an impressive story. I have never had the chance to hear that, and really very impressive how massive such a cyber attack exerts influence. Frank, Eduard, do you have any questions to Jan?
I would probably have something to add on first, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, I've been involved in some cases where there were cyber attacks as well, and I've heard a few other cases. So I think one important thing that became clear also from what Jan said is if you start doing a lot of things afterwards, it's very time consuming and costly. So whatever you can plan ahead, it could turn out to be very useful in knowing what you do. As you said, what time frame do you look at? What is your business model? Which data do you need? So I think that's one key aspect. Another thing that's really important, I think, is the insurance topic. So I would advise everyone to see what kind of policies you may have already, what is covered, what is not covered, what is a useful insurance cover to have for your specific business model. And what I've seen in the past, it's really important that you are aware of the obligations you as a company, as a policyholder have. That is, before you sign, what kind of information do you give? I've seen it quite often that the insurance is bought by one department who is not really aligned with the IT department, for example, meaning you provide information which may not hold true anymore because your IT is maybe further or potentially less good as the procurement or whichever department signs that contract thinks it is, and then during the running of this contract, you have obligations, and also during the actual cyber incident as well. So I think that's something very important to monitor and to be aware of what does it mean for your individual business. And also things like ransom payments, as we have heard, there's quite often the asking of the attackers to pay money. That should be considered carefully, also potentially be aligned with the insurance company So that's all important topics. And one last thing, if I may, I think it's important to assess your business risk, your, let's say, immediate risk. How do you continue your work? What's, I think, also quite dangerous is if you have a loss of data from your customers. We've seen it in the papers, credit card data, where we talk about lending, specific sensitive data. And if this is to be published by the attackers, for example, I've seen cases where they went into the darknet and published or wanted to publish data that can have severe consequences from data protection law. So I think it's also important to have some at least idea on how you respond to this threat. So it's not potentially affecting your core business, but it may be a risk that you come, under the radar or on the radar of data protection agencies and customers. And there may be quite substantial fines involved if you don't react properly, inform of the incident and address the specific people whose data is lost. So I think a bunch of topics, and maybe Eduard, you were nodding.
Thanks a lot for sharing with us this insights. It's I suppose very painful, but
in the end, it's an IT project, so it was quite interesting. If it's not that severe, if you get in the operation, you restore an IT system and can start from ground up. So it was quite fun, I would say, in some sense. But really, a nice project somehow.
Yeah, you could test your disaster recovery, right?
Yeah.
And so to say. But on the other side, I mean, on the positive side, maybe that you could use this to restructure, to change your IT architecture, and everything. Because if you started from scratch, so to say, you can optimize your processes. I mean, if you're paying, then do this maybe also with a positive intention. But for sure, that's the big deal to get such threat. And you're right that some questions I had, Constantin already asked also regarding how fast you could solve this. And about cyber security, that was also my point. You answered that, but in your case, interesting to know is that, this threat that was something was covered by cybersecurity, and you had no, I don't know what the right wording in English, Selbstverschulden on this, right?
Yeah. So basically, when we got the attack, the cybersecurity, the cyber insurance, they put us in contact with a forensic company, and basically, before you can format any laptop or do anything with your hardware and use it again, you have to run over some program over your hardware. It extracts some data and you upload it to the forensics. Then we basically send our complete storage system with all virtual servers to the forensics company, and they analyzed basically all system to find the point of entry. And of course, that is something that the cybersecurity wants, and it's of course understandable. And also, we get once a year, we get a contract where we have to sign. Okay, we have this protection level, and this we don't have, and two-factor there, and here and there. So we were not in a bad position and got everything. But of course, you are somehow afraid. I don't know. Did I miss a patch and everything is gone? Or of course, you're somehow afraid. But in the end, they couldn't find the entry point. And they said it's not unusual.
They couldn't.
They could not.
Okay.
And they said it's not unusual because the attackers, of course, they delete their traces afterwards because they want to use the attack vector for the next time. So it's not really unusual that you either don't find anything or the last server that you would find something on is now encrypted. So they couldn't really tell us where was the entry point. And also we had for our employees these kinds of tests they have to do every week, and you got like fake mails which we generate ourselves, and you see how many click on a link, and you say them, you are not allowed to do this, and they have to do like video courses. We had all of these things, but you cannot protect yourself. It is as simple as this. And what I would advise, don't spend all your money on protection, but also spend something on recovery. And for especially on data protection and data recovery and having backups and having the best backups, because even we had to recover 50 terabytes of data. And what it takes to get 50 terabytes from one machine, it just, you plug in your device and it writes 4 weeks until the data is down, and you say, what is happening here? So because of this already, it's good to have a mirrored system, what we have. So we have your geo-redundancy, and you have basically, you can have two companies working on data extraction and data cleaning, things like that. So this is also really having your data secure and getting it back. This really, if this is not working, your company is gone. So that's what you can say.
You used also external support, right?
Yeah. So we had an immutable backup system, pure storage, and we basically had one hardware sitting in our place. We had the exactly same hardware in a data center a few hundred kilometers away. They were synchronized, and this was really what basically saved us, I would say. Immutable technology, yeah.
No, but I mean, for the recovery, you also used external support to recover your data, and
we had the same data as they had, but we could say, okay, we recover these folders. You please recover this database server, because you have 500 employees, and everybody is coming. Oh, I need my data. It was somewhere on K in this and this folder, and also this in advance. Manage your data. Structure them, that if you have to recover them, that you can say, okay, this is what my financial department needs. This is what HR needs. This is what construction needs. And not that people are running around, okay, this was the name of my folder, I don't remember on which server. Then you end up in a mess.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Very important key takeaways, I'd say. And perhaps let's move now over from your business to our business, the fintech lender's business, and let's go to the core issues of the show, which is NIS2, DORA and CRA, 3 very important legislative acts. And let's a little bit drill into the details, and simply because it is quite relevant, most of it at least, for the ecosystem. And I would like to start with distinguishing NIS2 from DORA. And we have 2 wonderful experts here from the consultancy side and from the legal side with you, Frank and Eduard. And yes, let's shed a little bit light on this, and especially as what I know that there is still a certain number of stakeholders in space that is not yet so much in the details. And what I would very much like to discuss with you today is especially the practical perspective. Not so much the nitty-gritty legal details. And let's start perhaps with, as I've mentioned before, with distinguishing NIS2 from DORA. And what are the main differences? Who can perhaps start with it? And especially in view of the fintech lenders and the affected sectors. What can you tell us about this? Why should we take care of it?
Because we have to.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. So I think that's the key thing. You have to. So I think at the moment, DORA is the most talked about because it was in force for the last 2 years, but now it's to be applied. So let's say it's in full force now, and we've seen the whole sector, or the whole industry, I would say, financial services industry, that includes all banks, lenders, insurance companies, brokers, asset managers, payment services firms. Everyone has to deal with this. And I think the key element that distinguishes DORA from the other regulatory initiatives is that it's specifically aimed at the financial services sector, and it's addressing the financial services players, the entities directly. So it's not so much, especially as a cyber act, I would say, like service-based. What do you do? It's more like who you are. If you are one of these regulated entities, you fall within the scope. There are exemptions for some smaller entities in the pension world or in the insurance brokerage world, for example. But mainly, you could say, if you are one of those financial services players, no matter who you are, where you are, how big you are, you have to follow the DORA rules. I think that's the key element. And as I said, it's in full force. And we see that, I would say, all industry players, including all advisors and contractual partners, ICT, like the service providers, they're still trying to come to terms with a lot of the rules. Even BaFin and the other regulators and supervisory authorities, they are struggling to implement everything in due time to provide further information. So it is a very challenging environment at the moment, I would say.
Okay, and who has to take care of NIS2? This is something I have not gotten yet.
The difference in between is mainly that DORA apply for financial institution and NIS2 is usually for critical infrastructure. So it could be so that you as a financial institution need to apply for the both. I mean, could be a critical infrastructure and then you need to fulfill both of them. Then you have two regulatory authority, so to say. In Germany, it would be then for DORA, BaFin, and BSI for NIS2. But the main difference, main difference, financial and non-financial, so to say, critical infrastructure or critical sectors. And then you have also some differences in detail, for sure. Also, incident reporting, the time of incident reporting, for example, you need to report very timely in DORA, and you have 24 hours in NIS2, and so on and so on. But mainly this two things you have to.
How do they relate to each other if a company falls into both scopes?
Mm-hmm.
What is it that they have to take into account?
Where both apply, if I may say. So Eduard is absolutely right. And I would say the scope of NIS is broader. It covers all critical infrastructure, for example, energy as well, whereas DORA is only financial services, which in turn is also a critical service. So financial services are covered by NIS2, but for the scenarios where you have both regulatory regimes apply, there are specific rules, for example, some reporting and some specific risk management rules are then prioritized by DORA and applicable under DORA and not under NIS, but other things when it comes to general data, privacy laws, etc. NIS would apply as well. So I think it depends on the specific scenario, but generally both apply, and then there's exemptions in NIS2 prioritizing DORA regulations.
Okay, thank you. And with respect to the implementation deadlines, we have a very special challenge here in Germany, because the German legislator has failed to transpose in time NIS2. The reason why is that the former traffic light government coalition was not able to agree on the transposition content. So what should those companies do now that fall into both scopes? How do they have to deal with it? What is your recommendation? And I think, Jan, that is also relevant for you, right? So how would you deal with it? As I know that you are at least having an eye on NIS2.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the details of NIS2. What would we need to have? Of course, we have now a better security standard and everything. And of course, for the cyber insurance, you have to provide a lot of things, how you're managing things. Yeah, but I'm really not the expert on NIS2. But in the end, it breaks up to system and structures. You have plans that you have, things like that. Yeah.
Maybe I can say some words about, but before I do this, a question to Jan. But are you ISO 27 certified?
No, we are not ISO 27 certified, but we have I don't remember. We have some kind of protection level that was certified, but not 27.1. No.
No. Why I'm asking, because what I answered to the question from Constantin, that what to do if in the meantime, before NIS2 is adopted for Germany. But I think the best way is to follow requirements already now, to try to be aligned with existing IT security laws, and also maybe to be engaged in the industry best practices. One of them would be ISO 27001 or NIST, NIST. but because that helps. I mean, maybe because I'm coming from ISO 27, I'm the fan of. But if you have this ISO 27 ISMS built on ISO 27001, you is already on the safe side. You covered maybe 70 to 90% of requirements you need for DORA and NIS2. So that's a good foundation to go forward. And also in regarding cyber insurance is also a good point to have low rates if you want, or if you have cyber insurance, because it's a kind of
what we have is called the BSI Grundschutz.
That's a similar. That's a German kind of ISO 27001 BSI, right? That's Grundschutz Handbuch. Yes, right.
Thank you.
And I would say, if I may add, Constantin, it kind of depends on your own risk assessment. You know, if you are a financial services player, I would argue that most of the topics are at least to a large extent covered by DORA and existing regulations already, independent of NIS2 being transferred into or transposed into German law or not. And then I think it would make sense to look at the draft German laws, see how that would potentially affect you, and also whether there is a potential risk of, if the non-implementation will continue for a longer period of time, whether individuals may derive rights from NIS2, then they may apply directly, and of course a court may decide in that case. So it's kind of, I think, when we talk about digital lending specifically and regulated financial services players, I think a lot of it is covered, and then it really depends on your individual situation as a company, what you should consider out of the NIS2 context. You know, do you have a lot of consumer data, or are you a B2B business and not really involved with consumer data, etc.? So I think that needs to take some evaluation.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings me to DORA. And simply because NIS2 is now not yet finalized in Germany, and as far as I know, in a couple of other EU member states as well, let's switch over to DORA. And simply because this is by far more relevant for most of the entities in space, simply because they are neatly regulated according to the Fund Manager Directive, or to MiFID, or to ECSPR. So let's talk about this. And as I've mentioned before at the very beginning, I'd very much like to hear from you what your experience is with respect to the implementation process. So what can you tell us about it? You know, Frank and Eduard, I bet you have already given advice, tremendous advice, to many entities in the ecosystem. So what can you tell us about this kind of experience? What have you seen to date? What are the challenges? What are the impediments in this process by implementing DORA? What are the key takeaways? Who would like to start?
I'm very happy to hand over quickly, and then I can add on later. But I think what's important to understand, as we talked about NIS2 before, it needs to be transferred, and DORA does not. DORA is a regulation under EU law, so it applies directly. So it has been in force. Everybody knew what was coming. And from the 17th of January this year, it has to be applied by everyone. So the EU law is directly relevant to all entities in the financial sector in Germany. So I think that's the key thing. And then you have further levels of regulation and BaFin views on certain topics. They're still evolving. So I think that's the key thing. And then maybe, Eduard, you can talk more about the practical views, and then I can maybe add something as well.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, as Frank said, that's already in force, and fintechs should integrate compliance early. Already, to avoid all the penalties and other issues they can have. So for sure, what do you need? You need risk management framework to establish that what I already said, ISO 27, for example, that could deliver such kind of framework. You have other possibilities to develop this, but you need to have a risk management framework. You need to make continually incident reporting. You need to make gap analysis, also to have third-party risk oversight. And for sure, now we have also possibility to automate using AI. So that's also a possibility to make a smoother and faster and maybe cheaper a little bit, because for sure, the finance industry is very regulated, and the companies need a lot of resources and money to be compliant. So, but for sure, I think if we are talking about smaller companies, maybe a good point would be to ask for external support. For now, there are some companies offering a kind of virtual CISO role, Chief Information Security Officer, to have somebody who can oversee, who can manage, who can supervise this development, this process, because there are a lot. If the company at the beginning of this trip and they have nothing or not a lot of that, a big deal and huge investment also to establish such frameworks, establish such processes. And I think the best way would be to try to find a good partner who can support this. So that would be my recommendation for.
My question is, in addition to that, what is your practical experience? What did you experience when you were advising entities? What did companies, how did they cope with what you proposed with respect to implementation? What is it? What are the key takeaways from this process? Is there anything that you were able to tell the audience?
Yeah, that's difficult. I mean, a lot of companies have a difficulty to implement DORA or NIS2 because it's a lot of effort. They have usually a sort of complex processes and a lot of gaps, so to say, because what you're doing at the beginning, you try to find to understand how the company is staying there, and you make a gap analysis, and a lot of gaps and not enough resources. So the takeaway is you need to take time for that. You need to take expertise. And I think if you know that you are not compliant and you will not be compliant in the next months, maybe to talk to regulator and to make it transparent and to say, okay, guys, we are working on. We have a roadmap. We want to be compliant. We want to apply, but we will need more time. So that could be also a kind of way to go. But yeah, usually I have to say that many companies started not timely. I mean, not in the time to work on this.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important message.
Can I ask?
Yes.
So what does it boil down or break down to? Is it so, for example, so you have to have two-factor authorization here. You need a 4 eyes principle for this process. You need to store this data encrypted. You need a patch Tuesday. You have to document it. Or what are the concrete things you have to document?
You have to?
To show or to demonstrate, or what are really the things really you have to do other than reporting and writing papers? So what is?
You also need at the end. Usually you have it's usually two parts. One side you have to establish the processes and documented processes. On the other side, you need to have provide evidence that you really work on this. I mean, that you are using these processes, because it's important to have something, but more important that you are using them. So at the end, if the auditor or regulator will come, they want to say the documentation, but also how you work and what are you doing, really, what are you doing? So some evidence, usually you have some systems you can show them, or you have some evidence, some logs, some internal audits. and so on and so on, because you need also to have regularly internal audits and so on and so on. So, but as I said, you need not only to document, you also need to leave what you already documented.
And I would add to this. I think it's exactly right what you said. Document and live by your standards that you documented. My experience, though, from the last, let's say, 1 to 2 years is really that DORA is a game changer, although you could say it's rather evolutionary because there are steps from other, we had the BAIT, VAIT, etc., the IT regulation. It was always there, but it was very focused on outsourcing. Now DORA is much broader. It's affecting more services than just outsourcing. And I think the key thing is to really understand as an undertaking, as an entity, what is your core business? Where do the risks lie? And how does tech services, ICT services really affect your business? What do you need? What do you not need? And I've seen from many calls that sometimes for the first time, IT guys talk to legal guys, talk to procurement guys, because they are sitting on legacy contracts that are 5, 10, 15 years old. The people that concluded the contracts are no longer in the company. Everyone is wondering, what is this tool that we have? What is it for? Is it for a critical IT system for our core business, or is it just something nice to have? Why do we have it? So all these questions come onto the table. And I think that's one of the main challenges. And it's super time consuming when you have to find the right language between a tech guy and a lawyer and a board member and a procurement guy to really understand, what are we talking about here? Is this crucial? Is this not crucial? What's the value? What's the risk, etc.? So this alone, I think, sometimes takes a couple of Teams meetings or whatever to establish some common ground to even talk about the topic. And that's super time consuming. So, and if you consider this across, I don't know, hundreds of potential tools and services, and sometimes you're not sure, does one service kind of feed into various business units of your business? And the larger you are, the more complex it gets. If you're a startup, it's probably easy to talk to your tech guy and you have 3 guys on board and, it's all discussed quickly. But if you have huge departments, sometimes they're centralized, sometimes they're in foreign countries, etc. They're running the IT for the whole of Europe. All these things now become more and more transparent, and it's very painful, as in, everyone has to leave their comfort zone and they have to talk to each other and they have to establish processes and discuss things. I think that's one of the main challenges at the moment. It's, I think, important and beneficial in the long run, but it's painful now. The time pressure's there and you have to find solutions, but you don't even sometimes know who to start with. That's my experience from a lot of conversations.
I think what Frank talked about, it's also important regarding third-party risk management. So to also to audit vendor contracts, because if you have a supplier, and I suppose you sure have somebody, it's very important, and also compliant with DORA. And I had or I have got a request some days ago that the smaller company, the supplier of a bigger one, and now they need to be compliant for DORA and NIS2 per both of them. So that's a big challenge for the company. So that I think it's also important, if you're a smaller supplier of a bigger financial company, for example, you should be aware that it could be so that you will be asked to be compliant too.
Okay. Thank you, guys. I see there is so much more to say on DORA, but let's quickly switch over to the Cyber Resilience Act, especially in view of the time. Why CRA today in this podcast? Yeah, simply because there is an increasing number of fintech lenders selling their own software, especially with respect to credit risk assessment, to other stakeholders, such as other fintech lenders or insurances or banks. And my question is, what specific requirements does this regulation place on software developers? And what is your recommendation with respect to the Cyber Resilience Act? It has not come into effect yet, but it is something that is looming and that has to be put, at least from my point of view, onto one's agenda. But what do the experts have to say about it?
May I start again briefly? Because again, the Cyber Act Cyber Resilience Act is an EU regulation, so it is in force. So it's basically there. It's not going to go away. It doesn't have to be applied yet. So the application is end of 27, but it's safe that it's coming. It's there. So it's in force, but you don't have to apply it yet. But once it becomes effective, so to say, or is to be applicable, you have to apply it. And it's broader again than just affecting financial services. It's basically everyone that supplies specific, let's say, tools, hardware, software, etc. Exactly what you mentioned, Constantin. So you have to consider, what is your product? What are you selling to other parties? And how do you cope with this? So you may be directly affected. And I think this is affecting a lot of your members. It's also affecting a lot of advisors. More and more, especially big tech consultancies, etc. They all develop things. And I think everyone selling products or services in this respect has to carefully consider, may I be affected directly by this? I think that's the key thing. And then depending on your answer to this question, you can decide how do you spend the next 2 or 3 years or 2.5 years dealing with this, I would say.
Yeah, thank you very much for correcting me. You're absolutely right. It has already come into effect, but it is not applicable. Yes, that's the point.
Yeah, don't take it personally. That's
no,
I'm a lawyer. That's
no.
We would say it's
right, no. I was pretty much
Berufskrankheit, we would say. Yeah.
I am a lawyer actually too, and I'm so imprecise, So no, thank you very much for correcting this. And what my question with respect to CRA would be, are there any differences between proprietary and open source software? We have these two different models in space, and is there anything that is relevant to these two sources?
Maybe I would add something to the question before, because you asked what is important. And I think the most important thing is that companies, they have, as we hear from Frank, we have a little bit time until it will apply. But security by design principles, to use security by design principles is very important, because it's I think is one of keys to be compliant. I mean, after that, because it will be difficult to change if you're in the initial phase, and if you're not think in this architectural model. And for sure, to establish all needed things as also incident reporting and so on and so on. And it's important to do now and not to wait the 2 years or 2.5. And to your question, open source. I'm not a lawyer, but if I'm informed right, that I think that if that's if it's really open source or for free, that it's accepted from CRA, right, Frank? I don't know.
It may be. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. So, okay. But it may well be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And software as a service, I think it's also, as I understood, if it's really in a poor form, that's also accepted. But as always, it depends. It depends of the situation and of the constellation we have.
Okay, thank you. A very last question on CRA, and that brings me to the Product Liability Directive. What role does CRA and the PLD play in connection? What are you able to tell the audience about this, Frank, Eduard?
Yeah, you're talking about PLD, right? Yeah, yes. Product liability. Yeah, I suppose that it's for sure. If the product will be not compliant with CRA security requirements, so that could be used as kind of evidence in liability claims, so to say. I suppose so. I'm not a lawyer, but I suppose that could be that why it's so important to be compliant. And for sure, through CRA, you will have increasing of consumer protection. And I think that if you take this both together, CRA and PLD, that's increase the accountability for cybersecurity risks in such products.
Yeah, and I think it really depends on what kind of services or products, especially financial services players or groups of, a large group of financial services entity has in that sense. So it may play a role, but I think it really depends on the specific product you would have in mind. So it may be applicable, but I think the key thing is the financial services aspect, and I'm not sure where I would imagine product liability in the strict sense to be applicable. Yeah. I mean, we see more and more that you have large financial groups that provide non-financial services as well. So as a group, I think the bigger you are, the more services you provide, you may fall under both regimes, definitely. Yeah. And maybe you have something that falls under both regimes at the same time.
So the key message for today is all those that might think falling into scope should deal with both legislative acts at the earliest point of time. Okay.
I mean, we have AI as well. There's lots of acts you can deal with, and I would say the key thing at the moment, I mentioned this with DORA, but it applies to all the other regulations as well, is rather fact-finding. What do you do? What do you want to do? How can you potentially be affected? I think we're at an early stage, not regarding regulation, but regarding the individual undertakings, realizing what's our business model? What do we do? What are our services? What are our products? Who's buying our products? So all these questions, all this kind of transparency is needed now. And you need to kind of look at yourself as an entity and be really clear. What's your business? Where do you want to be? For example, with CRA in 2 years, do you want to provide these services or do you not? And if you do, then you fall underneath the regulation. So I think that's really crucial to assess yourself, your risks, your products and services. That's key at the moment and for the next couple of years, I think.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And let's go quickly over to my crystal ball question. And we usually end our shows with a crystal ball question. And I would like to ask you what you think the cybercrime trends in 2025 are. And I think especially of AI-based cybercrime innovations. Eduard, you are the expert with respect to AI or quantum computing. What do we have to expect with respect to this? Or are there any other trends? Jan, Frank, Eduard, what do you think? What do we have to expect from 2025?
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure that 2025 will be relevant for quantum computing. I mean, it will be relevant, but that we already be there. But for sure, in the long run, quantum computing is very important issue for the encryption and for all services what we are using. We need to think about post quantum cryptography and also already to start to apply or to use this, because I mean, in some years it could be too late. But I think quantum computing is something what will come maybe in the next 3 to 5 years. But regarding AI in cybersecurity is already here on the both sides. On the side of attackers, we saw that they are using AI to create content for deepfakes or also for malware, and also using AI to write the special code, also to make kind of very sophisticated and very complex attacks. That's on the other side, AI is already using or is used to protect. And there are some solutions using AI to protect companies. So I think it will be kind of, what's the right word? It's kind of Aufrüstung on the both sides, that we will try to be better and better, and that we will see in the next time. And I suppose 2025 will be kind of the year we will see a lot in this area. So that's my view on this.
So my view, I mean, cybercrime is really a business. It's an organized criminal business. What I learned, you really have people that are experts in getting the first access. They sell it to some other group who's more expert in this and that. Then they sell it to someone who wants to get the ransom, things like that. And of course, if they get tools to get their work done more easily or better, they will use these tools. But I mean, in principle, this will lead to more attacks. But in principle, for the next years, you don't need quantum computers to attack a lot of companies and institutions and make money. And that's somehow really the sad thing, that if I somehow think if more companies would put money in their protection level and not so many would pay ransom, I would say the tax would be less. I mean, somebody has to pay all these people and infrastructure, and it's paid by ransom. So if this would go down, I think this would definitely somehow help.
I would agree with this. And obviously, for me as a lawyer, it's very hard to say what's happening on the tech side. But what I think one has to say is that the general geopolitical landscape is not getting any more stable or safer at the moment. So I think from, privately organized crime, we are potentially likely to see more kind of state or rogue state organized crime. And traditional alliances seem to weaken at the moment. That's also, I would say, worrisome, because when it comes to general defense mechanisms, there's less certainty than before. I don't know how to break this down for a single entity. Everyone's probably well advised to look at themselves and see what can I possibly do to safeguard my business, because insecurity is growing and probably state partners are less able to respond or to provide protection. If we just see, the IT development in certain areas, when I just think about in Germany, the electronic files for the healthcare sector, it still takes ages, still lots of security issues from what I just read in the paper. And that's just a sign that it is a crucial area, and even state security and safeguarding is lagging behind. So I think each organization is well advised to take as many precautions and planning ahead as possible. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Frank, Jan, Eduard, for your time. It was a pleasure podcasting with you today on so many interesting topics.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
So thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have also enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you subscribe to our podcast and follow us on LinkedIn so that you will never miss our show. Stay safe and sound, and see you soon.